What's going on, guys? It is Laser here with another weekend video analysis. It's late at night, so I'm just being quiet. I don't want to wake people up in the house. Um, it is just past midnight. Actually, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I should be sleeping here, but I was trying to think of the best way to try and put out this video. I thought of putting this checklist. It's a great way for me to kind of keep my video nice and concise. And simple and easy to digest, and it's a nice reference for you guys as well, but it's also a way for me to stay on track. So having said that, let's jump right in. If you're new here, we do one of these videos every single week. We did one last week. We drop a prediction and where we see kind of the price going, and I'm here to kind of review that without kind of beating a dead horse. We got our prediction wrong. Let's quickly unpack that, and then we can move on. I predicted that there would be a retest and a bounce of this retrend line, and that was wrong. And 2020 is always hindsight is always 2020 is what they say. As we go and do that, I look back and realize after doing a more of a deeper dive on the velocity, it was wrong to actually anticipate this to kind of come up there. But yeah, you live, you learn. All right. I did. If there was one consolation prize from my last week's video, is I was leaning bearish, and I always did present a possibility of $4 kind of coming into play here. And when this broke to the downside, I started getting pretty active on Twitter. I started posting tweets and saying like, I started talking about like it might give you that bounce here, and if it doesn't, things are going to get kind of crazy. So more or less, we got our analysis wrong. We expected up, and the price went down, and it's that simple. We got it wrong. In the last 7 weeks, we got 5 out of the last 7 weeks correct. And if we go into next week and we get that right and we nail it, we can make that a 6 of 8. That's my goal. I never try and get it wrong. I never try and on purpose get it wrong. But that's my track record. I think it's a pretty good track record. I'm gonna get it wrong probably again in the future, but I'm gonna try my best, and I'm gonna share with you why I believe NIO is gonna go where it's gonna go into next week, and we're gonna actually cover that. But first, you guys might have saw this on here. In fact, any of you that has spent any time reviewing and looking on FinTwit as to who's been posting about NIO, I would say a big chunk of people are talking about the 50-day, 200-day moving average. I wanted to share my thoughts on it. I've never talked about this indicator before, but I actually have it loaded up right here. And I want to quickly just review that and say that I think it's a very poor indicator. And to put lightly and in the most respectful way, I think it's a very noob indicator to use. It's noobs use it, I think. And there's nothing sophisticated about the indicator, and it's tough to use it and then use that to decide I want to enter a trade based off that. It's a terrible lagging indicator. And all you got to do is look to the left and realize how poor of an indicator that is to figure out price action. Yeah, golden pocket, it's fantastic, but let's go to the left and see the last time. They call that the golden cross. When the 50-day moving average crosses the 200. But let's take a look at that. The last time they did that. Okay, that was the last time. We're labeling it 1. You would have gotten screwed if you bought and decided to enter right off that cross. And we're crossing there right now. Who bought NIO when it was 15 or 16? I bet a bunch of people. Who was pumping NIO? And when I say pumping, I mean dropping very, very, very bullish tweets and saying it's going to the moon. Who was doing that and got bagged because of that? I mean, you should take responsibility for your own decisions, but always take what you hear on Twitter, everywhere for finance, everything with a grain of salt. Let's go back over here. There's another cross. Who bought NIO when it was $46? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious. I'm curious to know what your guys' average, if you guys bought like at that price. Now, the only other time that, here's the third time that you got that cross, which would have been, and it looks great, and you would have thought like, well, what if that's going to be similar? Well, I'll tell you what. If it's anything similar to this, you're going to ride for a lot of pain back on the way downside. You don't get a monster move like this. You don't get up monster move without down. That's just the way it works with stocks. You got to see down before you can see up. Okay. And that's what I'm calling for going into next week. So I don't want to talk about the 50-day 200-day moving average for much, but I'm bringing it up in today's video because a lot of people are bringing it up because it just came up, and I'm here to let you know that it's a lagging indicator, and it's primarily, I think, used to identify, should you be looking for longs, should you be looking for shorts. And traditionally, I think when the trend is bullish, you should be looking for longs, and when the trend is bearish, you really want to be looking for shorts. And up until this point, like, the trend has not really flipped until now. But again, it's not going to help you find a really great entry. And you can just look to the left and see exactly how poor, like, if you're trying to, use that to dollar cost average, like, not great, which is a great segue into my next point, guys. So we'll cross that off. We're going now into the velocity breakdown, okay? Great segue. And when I say break down, I mean the velocity actually broke to the downside. So let's hide this. Let's clean this up a bit. I made it really messy. Delete the paintbrushes here. That's so much better. Here it is. Bang. As you guys can see, and I'm going to zoom in because some people can't see. I know some people have complained. How can I make this bigger? I don't know how to make this physically look bigger. I know some people complained about not seeing my price. Hang on. Maybe I can go in my settings and make that bigger. Is there a size? Scale. Always visible. I seriously don't know how to do that. I'm going to have to come back to that. I apologize if you can't see it. But there's nothing to see actually on this indicator. I think it was like on the price. Some people couldn't see the price. I've had people tell me that a few times. I apologize. I will try and address that going into next week. But the velocity has broken down to the downside. And how to interpret that is that the price action wants to come and either test and break that. And it works the same and vice versa. Okay. And for those of you who've been watching me for a long time, you've seen me talk about this for a long time. I'm going to show you. Notice how we have this trend line. The velocity broke to the upside here on May 2nd. We didn't get a breakout finally until like quite a number of months later. It took forever before it finally gave you that big move. Now, that's kind of here. This breakdown is giving me confluence that NIO will come down lower. And so that is one thing that I don't like. And plus it's broke down it's lower on the 200-day moving average. It could be fake out. And perhaps you do get that bounce. And I don't want to speak in absolute certainties because I could be wrong. And maybe this time's different, you guys. Maybe it's going to rip. But ask yourself this question. Whenever in the history of the stock trading, when retail gets behind a stock and gets super duper bullish over like a lagging indicator, does it work in their favor? History shows that it just hasn't worked. But I get it. I get the excitement. And I totally feel people's excitement. And I also understand if someone gets defensive is when someone says like your favorite stock is going to go down. But that pretty much wraps up. We're going to talk about velocity once we try and predict where it's going into next week. And we'll come right back into that. But I want to talk about your safe and risky long entries. It's important for those of you that are sitting on the sidelines looking to kind of get into NIO, either to like dollar cost average down, or you're brand new and you want to get into NIO. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion. But if you were to enter and you wanted to enter at the basically like your safe zone, you don't touch nothing. You set an alert. You set an alert here for this. You go like that. Boom. Set an alert. You need trading for that, but that's another conversation, another video, another story. And you'd wait till the price breaks above here, which is approximately, if you can't see it, the numbers, it's around $7. Approximately 730. 730 all the way down to 7. I mean, it's there's no set price target. It's based off time. It slowly fades and goes lower. You want to get higher, and what that would look like for a safe entry is it would break up, and you would be entering long there. Now that's basically your only real true safe entry. There's a risky entry, which is also what I want to talk about. That was the next thing I wanted to talk about, and that was safe entry. I want to talk about your risky entry. Actually, I want to label that entry. Long. We're going to call this your risky long. We're going to do this. We're going to draw our fib trend line here. That looks messy. I'm not even going to do that. Pretty much your next best long entry is when you get that break, it'll be the first pullback, however low it goes. And it could go way lower. Right? That's your next best long entry. I would call that your risky entry. But risk comes with the reward, and the reward on that is like, way more higher upside, right? And so that would be kind of like the expectation. What am I going to talk about next? This is why I have this checklist here. Is NIO going to be cooked if it hits 4? So if you don't already know where I'm getting this $4 price target from, it's from this velocity. It's from this velocity right here. Broke here. Now, it must be said, the best long entries are at the bottom of a trend line. And if it does come down there, I suspect big money to slap the ask so hard. And I also expect retail to be crying and moaning. And I think I had more than one person come up and say, if NIO goes down to 4, it's cooked. It's just terrible. It'll be in rough shape. But I want to go ahead and say I disagree. I don't think that's the case. I think like that's likely when it's going to bounce the hardest. Did I forget something on my list? Where's my list? Did I delete it? Where did it go? Right there. Yeah, I did forget something on my list. Shoot. Should have been 6th. Okay. How do I edit? There we go. 6. Broad market analysis. Dude, sorry. I needed to put that in there. We're gonna cover the Hang Seng Index, and we're gonna cover like also we're gonna cover BABA. Where is NIO? Apologies. Really disorientating, kind of going in and out. I didn't mean to do that. I was just worried I would forget about my checklist here. Where is it? Where'd it go? It's right there. Okay. I digress. We go back in there. So there's your risky long entries, your very first pullback. And I do believe with how fast it sold off, it's very likely that when you do get a breakout, it'll come down here. Now, if I wanted to make this a little bit more like accurate with price targets, we're going to use Fibonacci. to help us figure out where that's going to go. And there's a possibility that it'll come up to this trend line where the risky trend line is. It'll reject hard, go to the 0.786, which is 456, $4.56. Break back above. Maybe it'll either reject or come higher into the. It doesn't matter where it goes, even above. And how low this goes, basically your pullback. This is like where you go long. It could pull back there. It could be a small pullback. It could also be a big pullback like this. I don't know. This is what makes it so risky. This is what makes it, and it could take so long. Like this could get drawn out, you guys. So if we're doing options, like this thing can get dragged out like for quite a while. Don't expect like immediate results. And that's the way I potentially see NIO going into next week. Was this what I was supposed to be talking about? I was talking about a risky entry, but like that would be your risky entry. And if anybody has the patience to hold and get that entry, you are a legend. I do like it. Some people are worried about missing it and whatever. I mean, the best approach really is as it's going down, you're slowly adding in. But as it's coming down on that pullback, there will be like a structural trend line that you can draw. And when that breaks, you can technically use that as like your, if you want to be perfect, but you don't have to get it perfect in trading. You just got to get it close. What do I want to talk about next? That's basically I think I discussed risky and long entry. Let's type that out so you guys can see risky. Pretty much anywhere in here is going to be your risky long entry. So next thing that I want to discuss about. Why is this so far away? We're going to go ahead and talk about is NIO cooked if it hits 4? And if you don't know what cooked means, like is it toast? That's another way of saying is it toast? Is it screwed? I'm just I'll let you know another way to look at this. And I'm going to say no. I've had a lot of people tell me it's cooked. It's not. It really isn't. Comes down here. Your best longs always come right at the trend line. And it might even break down. You could do that. So I don't think it's going to be cooked if it comes down into 4. And right there, you can see that's 4. If it gets there earlier, it can even do like 390. Now, where I'd get concerned with NIO will be, technically speaking, from a technical perspective, cooked if it breaks down and it's not a fake breakdown. It legitimately rejects. That means it is cooked. This is something you don't want to see. I don't think it's going to do that. Not saying it's going to happen. But for those that say, is it cooked if it hits 4? No, it's not. I disagree. So I think we talked about enough. I don't want to ramble anymore. I just wanted to address that. I do want to talk about the broad market analysis before I talk about the price targets that I'm watching and my prediction going into next week, because it's going to support my thesis. You see how much lower it can go? Well, let's look at BABA. Now, without like talking too much, BABA has a lot more room to go down to reach its ideal trend line where your longs are stepping in. Right? Hang Seng is the same story. This looks a bit messy here, so I'm going to delete some of this so you can see it. It's got some room to fall down. And that golden pocket is right around that trend line. So you got confluence there at around 1900. And so there's a lot of confluence between the Hang Seng and Baba that makes me think that we're gonna still see more downside. And going into next week, so that takes me to. I'm not even really particularly paying too much attention to the Dixie because we talked about it, and it's now 103.40. It's been rising steadily. Like, that is crazy, absolutely crazy. And we're getting closer and closer to that 105. I think like each one it goes up when it goes from 102 to 103. That's significant. When it goes to 104, you're gonna start seeing some people talking and stressing about it. Like, and when it gets to 105, but and again, I have this highlighted in green here because that's your safe long entry on the US dollar. And if it rejects, then that's every more reason to expect it to be a potential catalyst. Something here. This could be just the US cutting their rates, and that could be the next thing to kind of make this kind of come all the way back down. Back to NIO again. So we've covered the broad market. Price targets. So I want to be very clear here. The reason why I don't think NIO's cooked and I think it's going to go below here is this trend line broke here. And it never tested the top of this trend line. So if NIO is going to be cooked, it'll test at least 850 to 990 first before it gets cooked and comes way, way, way down. Before this ever breaks and it like breaks structure and if it were to break down, I anticipate it to come up into these price zones if it were to break down. Now, I don't even think it's going to break down, but if it were to do that, it's going to get to those price targets first. And it's going to really require you to exercise a lot of patience. So I am still watching 850. I'm still watching 10. But I do think we're going to take a nice scenic route down there. And so if I were going to make a prediction going into next week, we dive into the velocity again, and we look at the 2 hours. Now, the 2 hours is actually showing momentum is slowly shifting over to the bulls. But as I mentioned before, this looks so messy, you guys. I can't handle this. Can't handle these brushes. Can't handle that either. Okay. So from a velocity standpoint of view, and we talked about this before about safe and long entries. Until this breaks, like on the velocity, until the momentum shifts and we get like a pretty big move to the upside, I just don't see it kind of breaking out here. Like, I don't see the price kind of giving us that like nice safe long entry for a bit until pretty much every single move is going to be a short, in my opinion. So you got to be very, very careful. And it's fallen down so fast that even if it gets like that break, it's going to have another like steep move down, I think. And so going into next week, if anything, I could see that there's some sort of reversal happening on that velocity. But on the bigger time frames, and we're just going to erase here because is there anything else after the... Yeah, there's nothing else. I'm going to delete this. So there's just on the bigger time frames, everything doesn't look great. 12 hours, 24 hours. Things don't look great. In fact, the last time you kind of had like that break on that velocity, right? See here. It was like right over there. It kind of danced around, consolidated before you got that massive big move down. Boop, drop down. That could play out. And part of me wants to see that happen because I feel like that's it's just a necessary evil. If you guys want to see a really big move down or a really big move up, you need to see down. The more down it goes, the higher, the more ammo it has to rip and go higher. Not the 20, I think. I think like it's last thing. It wasn't even on my checklist, but I just remembered it. And this is the last thing, I promise. So if you watched up until now, thank you so much for staying in there. This is the last thing. It's kind of something like that, okay? There we go. Kind of funny, right? Let's do it like this. Yeah. You see how it's kind of where it kind of stopped and rejected? I mean, it did break over temporarily, but it wasn't able to get over that. And this is the way I see it. No. And where's that price target? If you guys can't see where I'm pointing, where that ends, that's like $9. Just some more confluence into hitting our first price target, or near our first price target, right? So there you go. There you have it. We can drag this out, right? Maybe it goes up to like 982. Anyways, that's it. I feel like I went way too long in this video, but I hope I covered everything here. If you guys enjoyed my video, don't forget to give me the thumbs up, subscribe to my video, and if you had any questions, I covered quite a lot in this video. Definitely drop the questions in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer those questions. And that's it. The time right now is 1:16. I think I did okay. Yeah. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Let's watch this price. Let's watch the stock and price next week and see where it goes. Cheers and have a wonderful day.